Kyler has been more of a roller coaster through a lot of his career, and you see that consistency. I would not be surprised one bit if they commit to him for the long term. If you don't see that consistency, I think is when they're going to have that conversation and figure out what is the best for the organization moving forward.
Kurt, I don't know if you saw the Cardinals announced a new facility in North Phoenix, and Kyler Murray was asked about it today, a new training facility in the offseason moving from Tempe. And when K1 was asked about it, he basically said, it looks great. I hope I'm around to see it because it's going down in 2028.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Beautiful, yeah. Hope, I don't know what's coming out, but hope I'm here to see it.
Yeah. And, we know how this league operates. And Kyler Murray, to me, I think he can win you a lot of games. But at the same time, I think he would even admit, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, there are a few elite quarterbacks that can carry a franchise year in and year out. And I don't like having this conversation a quarter of the way in and the team being 2-2 with the offense 28th overall. But at what point do you just say hey, we've reached a ceiling here, whether it's play caller or it's personnel at the end of the year? How difficult of a conversation is that, given the fact that there's not just a better quarterback available to you as a franchise this offseason? I think what happened with Geno and Darnold was a very unique situation. I don't know. How do you foresee this kind of playing out here in Arizona this year?
It is a hard conversation because we've seen some incredible moments from Kyler. But I think the bottom line is that, there hasn't been the consistency that you need and want, with your franchise quarterback. And, and again, I don't know all the factors that go into that. What we get to see is Sundays, right? Or Thursday. Yeah, we get to see 3 hours. And what I know is that he's a gifted thrower of the football. We know he's a tremendous athlete. We know that he's a playmaker. We've seen him go stretches where he's in the MVP conversation, for half a season. You got to be pretty good to be in the MVP conversation for half a year. But we've also seen at times when he's forced against good teams to have to play more conventional quarterback, he struggled. And, I'm a believer that when you get into the playoffs and you're playing against good teams every single week, they don't let you do what you do best. And they force you to have to go away from your strengths. And I think that's ultimately going to be the conversation is, what, and I think it's a conversation with every quarterback that, goes through an organization, is just that with what, this quarterback does really well, do we believe those are the things that can put us over the top, that can win in the playoffs, that can take us to a championship? And that's the tough conversation that you have to have, whether you're the general manager and the head coach, or the tough conversation, just trying to figure out, like you said, is there somebody else out there that's better than what Kyler is? But still, what's the goal here? What are we trying to do? What do we need at that position to do what we want to do and what we came here to accomplish? And so I do end up at the end of the day, believe it's going to come down to consistency for Kyler this year, seeing the uptick that, we've seen moments, we've seen a half a season. I want to see 17 games. I want to see that there's an uptick in terms of his consistency playing the game however we need him to play the game, because there are going to be times, and a lot of times, where he's not going to be able to rely solely on the athleticism that he has, and he is going to have to win games for us other ways. And so the consistency in showing us when we get into those kind of games, because there'll be a handful of those games this year, does he show an uptick in his ability to do that? And I, think that's what it's going to come down to is figuring that out. And it is a tough conversation. And I have no idea where the Cardinals are going or what they're even thinking right now. Because right now, as you said, you're 4 weeks into the season. And again, there's so much ability and there's so much talent and there's so many moments that we've seen. But this position is solely about consistency. And, the best in the league are the ones that show up and consistently perform however they're asked to perform. And I think Kyler has been more of a roller coaster through a lot of his career. And you see that consistency. I would not be surprised one bit if they commit to him for the long term. If you don't see that consistency, I think is when you're going to, they're going to have that conversation and figure out what is the best for the organization moving forward.
I think you make a great point about like being able to secure like wins against good teams. Like the Cardinals have struggled the last 2 years beating good teams. They can beat teams that they're supposed to beat.
Right.
But I do wonder, you see like Baker Mayfield's second act, Sam Darnold's second act, these guys that leave, I wonder if there's some hesitancy because, and you listen, that's nobody's fault, right? But at the same time, like you yourself had a tremendous second act. Like, what do you make of that? Sometimes people just need a fresh start?
I mean, sometimes it's the organizations they're in that doesn't fully fit them. Sometimes I do think it takes longer. Like for me, when Baker was in Cleveland, I thought Baker was a starting quarterback in this league. And I thought he should still be in Cleveland. I thought he was a perfect fit for what they were doing. And they, for whatever reason, didn't think that. Sam Darnold never showed himself to be a consistent starter in this league, whether it was, the different places that he was before Minnesota. But now, maybe it was maturity. Maybe it was finding the right fit for him that allowed him to gain that confidence back and become the player that he is, because obviously he looks really good in Seattle as well. But, I think there's a lot of different factors, right? Some people, it just takes a little bit longer to get there. And that becomes another question is like, 7 years in, is there still room for change? And is there still room for growth? Or do you feel like, when you're this far into it, this is kind of who you are. You've shown us who you are from that perspective. And so, all of that stuff goes in, but you're right. You can look around the league and go, look at Geno Smith. I mean, where he's at and, after, so many years and people think there's no chance. And now he becomes a starter. And so sometimes it's a new start. Sometimes it's, people seeing you from a different light and being able to do different things. Sometimes it's just, hey, it takes me a little while to get there. And then there's other times, as we know, there's guys that just don't ever get to that level, and not that they can't be good quarterbacks or starting quarterbacks, but they may not ever get to and elevate to that great level or that elite level, that everybody is looking for. And so I think it's a hard conversation because nobody knows what's on the other side. And when there are enough examples of a guy that got thrown away and told that he couldn't play, and he comes back and shows people, oh, well, yeah, you can. Like, so now what do we think? Was it the guy? Was it the quarterback? Or was it the system? Or was it a combination of both? We don't know, but you're right. I mean, I think it would scare any general manager. I mean, again, the Giants probably have, their guy, in Jackson Dart, but I'm sure the first couple of weeks of the season, they're going, really? Daniel Jones is the best quarterback in the NFL? Like, where did this come from? Like, what? I don't get it. And so yeah, I'm sure there's going to be all of that going on and all of those conversations. And again, I think the unique thing about Kyler is that he's played at an extremely high level for periods of time. It hasn't been like, oh, it's all been a struggle, and we haven't won any. I mean, he's played at a really high level for periods of time. And so that level of play is in there. But it's just a matter of, I think for me, if you have to play a little bit away from your strengths, can you still give us that consistent level of play at the quarterback position? Because I ultimately think that's what it comes down to, like we're talking about, especially against good teams, down the stretch when games matter, when you're playing against the best defenses in the league, 3 and 4 weeks and trying to chase a championship. Those are the things that become most important.